We're with Dr. Jorge Vanegas. He's the Dean of the College of Architecture at Texas A&M, and he has predicated his career on creativity, innovation, design, and entrepreneurship. How you get those all in a single phrase, let alone a business card, is a feat. How you get this into your working life is something I hope we could talk about.
Because they're not labels. The way that I approach that, they're just ways of thinking.
Okay.
I'm an integrator, I'm an aggregator, I'm a catalyst. And I found when I came to Texas A&M that those four words define what I do not only as a professor, but also as a dean.
Right.
And I actually use the acronym ICIDE instead of having to say the whole set of words. But what they represent is possibility, opportunity, and at the core of all of that is imagination, which is what really drives me today.
Well, let's talk about imagination. How do you fuel it, and how do you keep it alive in your students?
Well, first you have to revive it,
Okay.
because it has been killed throughout their system of education.
Yeah, I'd say in
And
America
they
it's
are the ones
dormant.
that recognize that.
Yeah, right.
So I make the analogy that imagination is like a fire.
Okay.
Sometimes we forget that we need to start it. Sometimes we start it and forget to keep it going.
Right.
But the reality is that once you have it started and once it keeps on going, there's no limit to what you can use the fire for. So for me, imagination is something that you have to exercise almost the same way that you exercise your muscles,
Right.
that you exercise your brain, that you exercise. That imagination takes you to multiple places, but if you don't have to use it, then it atrophies over time.
Can you define imagination? I think all of us have a working definition, but what can imagination be, besides just daydreaming and
Well,
finding?
daydreaming is one manifestation
Okay.
of it, but if I ask you to close your eyes and
Okay.
think about a happy moment in your life, you would be able to probably have many of them.
Okay.
So imagination allows you to relive what you have already lived and bring it back on demand.
Okay.
At the same time, if I were to say, close your eyes and imagine something that has not happened and you have not lived, and then you do so, then imagination allows you to do things that you have not done.
So you have a spectrum. You have memory over here, which I think is the first
Yes.
one, and then imagination would be over
And
here.
that imagination creates perhaps a target, perhaps an opportunity. So for me, imagination helps you understand life at a much deeper level, especially now that we're adults. Every kid has imagination. They play with imaginary friends. They imagine worlds that don't exist, but for them, it's real. So part of what I try to do with the students is I offer an opportunity for them to realize that even though they have not had to use it, they can still use it. And if you target it towards something meaningful, literally you can do things that could change the world.
But what was it about their education or their real lives that pushed their imagination out of their daily experience?
Draw between the lines.
Right.
Do the letters this way. Do what the teacher says. Be able to answer a standardized question on a standardized test. We beat it out of them, because if a kid daydreams, he or she's wasting their time.
Right.
If a kid finds an answer to a problem in a way that was not the procedure that you needed to follow, they are marked off. I mean, I have seen all of that. My own daughter, she was in kindergarten, came with an assignment to do a collage of pictures from magazines, and she needed to find 2 pictures that began with the letter T. Being who I am, I brought dozens of magazines. I brought a pair of scissors and I said, let's find every possible word. And she started crying. And then my wife told me, you are confusing her. I said, what's confusing about doing this? I think we can do a fantastic collage. The teacher said 2.
2.
So I went to the teacher, and yes, that's what they wanted. So you are teaching conformity. You're teaching do things the way that it has always been done. And in very rare occasions do you actually push that button that says imagine the possibilities.
In the context that you find yourself working, do you have an opportunity to teach teachers as well as students?
Yes, I do. For example, this visit to Santa Rosa Junior College is an opportunity for me to share what I know. Now, one thing I did in 1996, and I can remember the day I chose to do that, is I stopped being a teacher.
You stopped?
Yeah. I do not define myself as a teacher.
Okay. I mean,
I
you're
am
the
a
dean.
designer
Okay.
of learning experiences. It's not just semantics. If I teach you something, I start with a premise and assumption that your mind is empty, and I need to fill it with what I know.
My mind is empty. So.
It could be,
Yeah.
but what I would like to do is actually the opposite. I'm going to expose you to an opportunity for you to realize that your mind is really not empty. It's just that certain parts of it have not been used. So I work the other way around, because my ability to achieve an outcome is for them to learn to keep on learning on a lifelong learning journey. That's what I do. So it may sound kind of weird that a professor does not define himself as a teacher, but I've seen too many teachers impose values. They don't see students for the unique individuals that they are.
Right.
They see them as clones of the professor. They see them as the recipients of all this wonderful knowledge. I don't do that. Now, I'm not putting down those teachers. All I'm saying is that my focus today is about creating high impact learning experiences, and I do that through teaching.
And a learning experience is, well, it's almost redundant. Experience is learning, is it not? And learning.
No, you can have the same experience over and over and over again and never learn something.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah.
for me, I make a clear distinction from the world in which we live in, which we're swimming and actually almost drowning in data. Mm-hmm. When you have enough data on its own, it's meaningless. But when you change data into information, that's better. But then with information that you don't use, it's kind of silly. Mm-hmm. But then you apply information in a way that it becomes knowledge.
Right.
So when you use knowledge, then you get to experience. So knowledge and experience is a cycle until finally you end up with wisdom. I focus in that symbiotic relationship between knowledge of the world, awareness, whatever you can do, and then applying it. And what do you learn in doing that?
So to get the hierarchy straight, data, information, knowledge, wisdom.
No, experience and then wisdom.
Really? That precedes it? Okay, great.
Because when you're wise, it's because you have learned a lot by doing. You don't become wise just by declaring, hey, I'm a wise man. No, you have to have lived, failed, succeeded beyond belief, failed beyond belief. It's a failure, it's success, it's all of that. But if you're not aware that every time you do something, it's a lesson, then you're missing out on what life has to offer.
Well, we'll come back on what life has to offer with Dr. Jorge Vanegas after this break.
Hola, por favor, una aplicación. Gracias.
Olvídate del drama. Completa tu high school diploma.
¿Se ve bien? Gracias.
Da ese primer paso hacia un mejor futuro. Visita completatudiploma.org ahora para encontrar cursos para adultos gratis.
We're with Dr. Jorge Vanegas. He's the Dean of the College of Architecture at Texas A&M University. And we've been talking about the relationship between data, information, knowledge, experience, and wisdom. Obviously, you've arrived at this after much meditation and thinking and study, or not. Maybe it was just a divine inspiration. But you arrived here through a very circuitous route, as I understand, beginning in Bogota. How is it? How from there to here?
So my life has been a set of connected events with multiple forks. And every time I choose left or right, it has opened a whole new world with new possibilities. So Bogota is a large city. Mm-hmm. I lived in the suburbs. And one Saturday night, and I almost could tell you the exact date, it was in August.
Okay.
I decided on a Saturday night that I was bored, so I was going to visit a classmate of mine who lived in the downtown part of Bogota, which was about 40 minutes away by car. Okay. I had a car, so I went there, parked at night on a Saturday place, not exactly in the best safe part of town, and I called on the old phones that actually had coins.
Right.
I'm here nobody answered. So I hang up and says, okay, I wasted a trip. And at that moment, I heard two voices, distinctly British, trying to ask a Colombian, is there a pub around here? And I turned around and I saw who they were talking to, and I would not want it to be associated with a person like that. It's a very dangerous neighborhood. So I intervened. I knew English at the time, and I said, excuse me, can I help you? That simple, excuse me, can I help you, launched a completely concatenated domino effect that has led to where I am. If I look back and connect the dots, it's a meandering path of life. Every decision point I've made, given the fact that I teach planning and I teach decision making and I teach all that, I never have made decisions that way. So is it a gut feeling? Is it on the moment sport? But I have taken more risks than I ever thought I would without knowing I was taking risks. So it's very easy for me to connect the dots going back. So looking forward, it's kind of hard to connect the dots because you know what dots are. So all I can do is that every time a dot comes to me, I make an instant judgment of yes, no, and proceed. And I have never regretted it.
Yeah, but you recognize what a dot is. I think a lot of people.
I recognize. Yeah. What I have developed, perhaps, is a heightened sense of awareness of possibility.
Right.
And in fact, that's probably my Achilles heel because I'm too addicted to potential, to possibilities, to opportunity. And that is a blessing, but at the same time, it's a curse. So I keep saying that my biggest problem is that my appetite exceeds my ability to chew because I look at everything as an opportunity. You give me the worst case scenario and I'll tell you how to turn it around. And it's not that I have trained to do that, it's just that it has developed over time. And that's what defines who I am and what I do these days.
And one of those defining moments, one of those dots, if you will, was when you asked, can I help you?
Can I help you? And that led to a dinner, and that dinner led to every day being a visitor to their house, which led to other things. And eventually, when she left to go back to England, it launched another concatenated dot with another girlfriend that dumped me, and that dump led to me applying to 11 universities, of which only one gave me an application form, which was Stanford. I applied without knowing what it was, and I got accepted. And then I came here without knowing everything. It sounds almost like a, sitcom comedy. But I look back, and I think that what is the common thread is that when I had made a decision, I had to trust what my mind, my heart, my gut were telling me, sometimes scary, sometimes not. And I never dwelled on everything that could go wrong. I just focused and imagined on everything that could go right. And that goes back to our original discussion on imagination, I think is what has helped me.
Well, one word you didn't use throughout this is destiny. It sounds like that you feel very much in volition, like you are driving your own fate, as it were, right? You are making decisions that shape your life actively, proactively, rather than.
Yes. So if you define fate as knowing or thinking that you know what your predetermined future is, I have never operated like that. What I do know is that I do believe in free will. And I actually teach that in class, and I give ultimate freedom of choice to my students. But with freedom comes personal responsibility and personal accountability. So I know that if I make a decision that was wrong, okay, I deal with it and move on. So part of what allows me to move ahead is that I don't have a destination point. And that is what is exciting about life. I may die tomorrow, but I'll die happy. If I have a destination and all I dwell is, am I getting there? Am I not getting there? How close am I? Am I there? No, is my life 100% happy? No. So there's nothing wrong with that. So I let that element of surprise drive me.
Well, let me, which I think is fantastic. But let me ask you then: are you without a goal?
I have plenty of goals.
You're right.
But I don't have a predetermined fate.
Right.
It's like another word I never use is I'm not optimistic about anything anymore. Every time I have been optimistic in my life, it has created expectations, and every expectation I have ever created has been crushed.
Right.
I am, though, full of an eternal hope. Hope doesn't get crushed at all. And I actually testified in the state legislature of Texas on one project that I had when I was asked, Dr. Vanegas, are you optimistic about the future of the border with Mexico? Because I have responsibility for their quality of life in one of the programs we have.
Right.
And I talked to the senator immediately and says, no, Senator, I am not optimistic. But I am full of hope that people like you, people like us, working together will help them. So that's what I make as a difference.
So I think hope is actually really what's defining of what makes us human, ultimately.
Yes.
It's an intrinsic bias, really, in the face of abject reality. We have hope regardless. It may not be optimism, and there may be no reason or call for optimism, but hope is intrinsic. That was a myth of Sisyphus, Camus, right?
Yeah.
He's immortal ultimately, so every time he rolls the stone up the hill, he knows it's going to roll back down,
Yeah.
but he hopes that it doesn't.
He hopes it doesn't. So what you don't want, though, is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So that's part of the problem with that analogy. I don't know what to expect sometimes. So I keep trying. And if something doesn't work, I may try it again, and then it definitely doesn't work. I'm not going to try it a third time. So I attack it from another angle. I'm a 360-degree all over.
Right.
Attack a problem. Sometimes horizontally, sometimes vertically, sometimes diagonally, sometimes with other people. So for me, life is what you choose to make it. And too many people dwell on what they don't have at the expense of seeing and living what they do have. So, how did I find this out? I didn't take a course. I didn't wake up one day doing it. It's just the accumulation of that experience applied with the knowledge that I have accumulated as a sponge in multiple settings. Mm-hmm. And I've been always surrounded by people that are more intelligent than me. So I feed from that.
Let's talk about those people when we come back. We're
Okay.
with Dr. Jorge Vanegas. We'll be right back.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you?
You know you do.
That's why we're here. We're free and here to guide you through every step of the way, starting with attendance. Gary, financial aid forms. Picking a college, man. You and us. We go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos. Go to GetSchooled.com.
We're with Dr. Jorge Vanegas. He's the Dean of the College of Architecture at Texas A&M University, and recently spoke at Santa Rosa Junior College. But before we broke, we were talking about your reliance on those smarter than you and how you seek them sometimes. Who the hell's smarter than you, dude?
Almost everyone.
Yeah.
Because one thing I learned from my dad is that he used to carry a chocolate bar in his pocket all the time. And when he went and he bumped into a secretary in an office, he made her smile by giving her chocolate. The person doing the elevator, the worker in the construction site, he taught me that everyone has some value. And just because you have a degree or just because you are a certain socioeconomic strata.
What did your dad do?
He was an architect.
Okay, yeah.
And so it made me appreciate humans for what they are. And some of the best lessons of my life have come out of the weirdest situations of people that you wouldn't think would teach someone like me. So I don't use my formal education as the benchmark for
Right.
what I said. So I may be talking to a clerical assistant, but I am talking to her or him, and sometimes I learn something because that's part of the problem. We refuse.
Do you have to
learn from
proactively
everyone.
remind yourself to be open to that kind of circumstance?
I think that at this stage of my life, no. I think it comes very naturally. I can be sitting next to anyone, and if the conversation ensues, I get excited. And it ends up doing that. Some people have been very generous with me. There was a lady once on a trip to Paris, my first trip to Paris. Her name was Rain, like Queen, and I will never forget her. And after she helped me go through Paris and navigate and put me in the right train station and everything, I said, how can I ever repay you? She says, do the same to someone else. That little lesson I have done over and over and over again. So this pay her forward is, it's not a matter of a transaction. It's a matter of I value what I received and I want to give that back and more. So I don't think it's anything really special. It's just the way that my dad instilled in me that fundamental value for humans, regardless of sex, regardless of political affiliation, religious affiliation, age, or anything. He always treated everyone with respect. And I think that the thing that is missing in today's world is respect. Respect for oneself, respect for others, respect for institutions, respect for everything.
Do you think respect is sort of the key to opening your mind and keeping it open?
I think so,
Yeah.
because one of the slides I showed today is danger, open mind. People today see open minds as threats because they go directly against the status quo. And part of my challenge is to make students aware that they literally have choices to make, and that any of them could be the next Steve Jobs. Any of them can be the next Mother Teresa. It doesn't matter what path of life they choose. They just need to be open to possibilities. So my role in designing learning experiences is always open, 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 minds, hearts, souls.
And do you think that leads to creativity?
And that is totally tied to creativity.
Right.
Everything I do now is tied to those words, to imagination. And by the way, imagination has a very close cousin, and that is curiosity.
Right.
They kind of feed each other. So imagination, curiosity, and the image that I showed, I'm going to paint it for you right now,
Okay.
is that you look at the world of every problem, reality that we're facing. That's fuel for the imagination. And if you're curious, you go out and find it. So this is a sun in the middle,
Okay.
unending source of energy. Imagination is free. Imagination is powerful. But on its own, it disperses all over. So what you need to do is encase it in a triangular pyramid with 4 points, each one representing a different type of thinking.
Okay.
Creativity, innovation, design, form a perfect triangle in the base. And up here is something called entrepreneurship, which is a spirit that pulls you over. And with that, there's no stopping on what you can do. So any student has the possibility to solve a problem in their disciplinary domain. You're studying agriculture, feed the world. You're studying engineering, power the world. You're studying health, save the world, heal the world. So that's what it is.
But envision that kind of outcome first, or to
No, I don't
Right.
have a, again, going back to the fact,
don't
I don't have a
prescribe, yeah.
preconceived, this is where you need to go. But I don't have any problem being a coach on the side, a cheerleader on the side, whatever role I need to do, a confidant, a wailing wall, I don't care what it is. It's for them. In fact, I do an exercise in class. The first day of class, I said, who is this class for? Is it for me telling you? No. This class is for, and then I wait till somebody says, me? And then I said, okay, everybody, shout it as hard as you can. Who's this class for? Me. So I have a button in my office that I got at a workshop.
that you wear.
And the button,
Yeah.
no, it's actually hanging in a very visible
okay.
part of my office. And it says, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's always about them. So what I do is I transfer what I have gained in my meandering life journey. And I make it available as a student, not for them to emulate, copy, or follow, but as a point of reference for why I'm doing what I'm doing in the class. And it's a shock for many of them. And they write comments saying, this is a weird class, I've never had this, but it makes me feel good. And I'm already reaching them to the point that in the 4th week of a class for this semester, there's some people that are already showing, wow, this is making a big difference in my life. And if I am achieving that, I'll die happy tomorrow.
And then the ones that are like yourself, do you see yourself in your students sometimes?
I see myself in some students. What I try very hard to avoid is to impose myself on them.
Right.
And I know that I'm a powerful speaker sometimes. I know I'm a very assertive professor. And it's very hard sometimes to know when to stop.
You've got that kind of charisma that I think, like some students, you'd be kind of a culty professor. They look to you like a guru.
Yeah, and some others don't know how to handle it.
Right.
Because they keep trying to put you in the mold of the professors they have had all their life.
Right.
And I don't fit that mold. And I tell them, I reward failure more with a good grade than just very basic compliance.
That's my kind of class. Yeah.
And that's what I try to do. They don't believe me though. But at the end of the semester, they realized that I have been authentic, that I have been consistent, that I am really walking the talk.
And you've given them the space to be authentic unto themselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
Personal choice, as much as they want, but with that comes personal responsibility and accountability.
Well said. Any place we can find you online besides this wonderful YouTube video?
No, there's plenty of things that have been filmed with me in the past. I'm just very blessed and lucky that I've had the rich life I've had, and I can't wait for the next chapter.
Well, we're very lucky to have had you here on 707. Thank you, Dr. Jorge Vanegas.
Well, thank
Hope
you.
to have you back when you're back in town.
Anytime.
Yeah.